Welcome to In the Future, where today we are going to talk about something that we've recently seen come to light. We saw a video last week where Sora AI is working with GPT to create these amazing looking videos that look realistic. And today we're really wondering on how AI is going to impact the entertainment industry, especially specifically how it's going to influence how trailers look and how trailers are created, because the possibilities are pretty endless, right? Everywhere from seeing your old school trailer being created to being able to add a level of a dynamic aspect to it as well. But Max, you really had some initial thoughts on this, so I'll go ahead and pass it to you to kick off.
Yeah, sure did. Did you mention they're movie trailers, or I don't want people thinking that they're physical trailers that were.
Sorry, movie trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, very very cool topic. So let me ask you this: when you are at home Friday evening after work, you're trying to decide what movie to watch on Netflix, on
Mhm.
Hulu, on HBO, whatever. What is your what's your process? Like, what's your selection process? How do you choose the movie that you ultimately end up watching?
Yeah. So when I think about that, I'm imagining a Friday night sitting down with my wife, and we're looking through Netflix. Really, there's three things that it comes down to. Actually, even before I get to Netflix, I do a Google search, right? Honestly, this is an honest answer of what I do. I go on Google and I search, hey, what is the feedback on this movie? Did it get really good reviews? Is it, is it talked about? The second thing I'll do is that I will be looking at the different trailers that are there, right? Or maybe the different recommendations that are within the platform. So if I see something that catches my eye, or it's something that I'm familiar with, we may go ahead and see what Netflix recommends and watch the trailer. And then number three would probably be, I guess I said reviews already, but just if a friend mentioned it, really, if somebody spoke to me about it, I may go ahead. Hey, somebody
Interesting.
mentioned movie X. Let me go ahead and look it up.
Okay, cool. So if I could summarize those, so let's say social proof, right? So like reviews, what are
Mhm.
people saying online? I think pretty much with any decision, those are important for. And then what whatever the recommendation algorithm is from Netflix, if you trust generally what it gives you, that's kind of going to guide your decision. I'm going to add two more in there. I'm going to add, and also you said movie trailers, which is exactly the topic that we're going to talk about today. But also there is, let's see, the little summary blip of the movie, like what that they put on top. I think that's key.
Yep.
And then you mentioned something else. Oh, and also the cover art, right? The cover art
Hmm.
is kind of what it comes down to. So in my opinion, it's really two key things that drive people's decisions of what movie to watch. It's the cover art, which is just like a visual, it either clicks with you or it doesn't. And then the movie trailer, right? I feel like
Hmm.
it's you start up here with the cover art, you read the summary blip, maybe you go online and see what the Rotten Tomatoes used to, are, things like that. And then it really comes down to the movie trailer, right? And I
Hmm.
think that the movie trailer is such a critical part of whether someone actually ends up moving forward and watching that movie or if they end up watching something else, which really makes me think, like, with so much riding on trailers for movie selection, isn't it nuts that movies only have one movie trailer, and that trailer is made in the confines of Hollywood? It's made by usually like a small team of trailer editors, and so they kind of have like they have their own ways, their own tastes already ingrained.
Hmm.
And secondly, there are just so many movies that don't have trailers attached to them at all, and it makes me wonder why. Is it
Hmm.
was it a financial thing where they didn't want to invest in making a trailer? Was it that Netflix didn't want to pay for the rights for that trailer if it works that way? Or is it just a really old movie, right? Like something like The Bodyguard, right? Like a movie from the
Hmm.
90s. Very good movie, very bad trailer. And a lot of the times you'll find that the trailer either it's just like it's really just it just starts playing the not even the trailer but just like a particular scene inside the movie,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
guess,
supposed to be enough to convince you. Or it's a really bad trailer from the 90s that no longer matches our taste and shouldn't really be used to influence decisions. And
mhm.
so to kind of tying it back to how you started off this episode, with AI being such a big part of our lives now, why aren't they being used more to create movie trailers, right? It seems like such
Mhm.
a clear connection where you feed I'm just going to kind of go through how I think that something like this would work. You take an existing movie, you feed it into an AI algorithm, and it just chops up the movie into a 60-second or 90-second or 2-minute trailer,
Hmm.
and it's able to kind of just like rotate different parts of the movie around to build the story, and then test that story on people and see, hey, this one resonates really well with people, this one didn't really get any traction or click through, and people decided not to watch it at all. So I think that's what the future of movie trailers is going to be like. I think AI is going to be creating a lot of them. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to allow the testing of those trailers in a much bigger way and just see what works and what doesn't. And I think ultimately it's just going to benefit the movie watcher experience, right? It's going to give them the best trailers. It's going to allow them to kind of make more intelligent decisions. What do you think?
Hmm. Yeah, and that's already here. That technology is here already. I mean, we've used it before. Like I've used it recently in one of our videos where it just took, obviously it's not a movie trailer, but it took the clips that would have the most reach out of our video. I uploaded it to a system. I think it was Clap, by the way, if anybody's interested. It was Clap. So they don't necessarily do movie trailers, but I'm just saying the underlying functionality is similar, right? You upload the video, it does an analysis on the video and chops it up, just like you mentioned. And that technology is here, and I think it'll be incredibly disruptive how fast it can just change things, right? Like Tyler Perry recently mentioned he was opening up this movie studio or this movie production house, and he put that on pause exactly for this reason. And he said, hey, Hollywood, we all need to come together very quickly because and we're not really specifically talking about Sora only, Sora AI in this particular chapter, but we're calling out that the technology, the breakthrough that Sora AI had, is really making people in Hollywood think, whoa, jobs are going to shift, jobs are going to get lost. And especially with the rough bump that Hollywood had recently with the unions and everything, that's completely going to change. So it'll be interesting how, and one part of Hollywood that we usually think about is like Hollywood it was like before the tech industry, in the early 1900s, Hollywood was a kind of a state of the art industry, right? That when Hollywood came out, there was nothing like it before. It had the latest technology, it was a new form of communication, the storytelling. So Hollywood was like the Silicon Valley of the early 1900s. You wanted to be there. It was a gold rush. It made money and so on. But they have now that it's been about a century, it's got a lot of antiquated ways about it, right? A lot of older thinking people, not necessarily older people, older thinking people work in that industry, and there's older ways where it's a lot harder to adjust and change things. So that mindset, I think, is something Hollywood needs to go through, or just accept that we're going to see some major disruptions and changes. So that's kind of my initial thoughts. There is, hey, what are we going to, the people that work in Hollywood today that aren't the actors and actresses, actually the actors and actresses too, they're all going to be impacted. Now, should they shift jobs? Should they go ahead and adapt to AI? What do you think? Is Hollywood going to adapt to AI and embrace it? That being said, I agree with you with the functionality of trailers being able to drive a more personalized experience, which it's hard to turn away from that. So Hollywood, will you lean in or not? Is really my question for them.
I think they have to, and I think that's why you had all of those protests, is because actors and writers of these movie scripts, they know that they are in many ways replaceable, and Hollywood will always look for the more financially better decision that's going to put more money into Hollywood. I also I also fully agree with you that Hollywood is, it's like a tight little community, right? And very few people have the power, and that power able to influence is able to influence the stories that get told in movies. And that's such a critical part of how our society gets shaped. It's, do people have, like, what people have representation in those movies, right?
Mhm.
What stories are being told, and then how do people resonate with those stories? And that's kind of what, you've heard me say many times, like one of my favorite phrases is content shapes culture, right? And
Mhm.
that's so true. And Hollywood has such a big part of it. And then also, So yes, I do think that AI is going to get embraced very quickly by Hollywood, not just for movie trailers, but for making movies, for writing screenplays. But movie trailers, man, that's where I think it's just such an easy lift, and I'm sure
Low hanging
companies
fruit.
are. Yeah, it's low hanging fruit, and it
Yeah.
drives such a big part of the business case for how a movie actually gets seen and by how many people it gets seen, right? So
Yeah.
why wouldn't that be the model where a movie studio can feed the movie, the trailer gets created, many different versions of that trailer get created and then tested
Mhm.
across Hulu, Netflix, HBO, Amazon, and then like that's the business case, right? That's what you should be
Totally.
selling to them. And then from like sell that service to the actual streaming apps, and then those apps are able to create a better movie watching, movie selecting experience for their audience, right?
Yeah.
And I think that whatever company ends up creating that distribution channel is going to make a whole lot of money.
100%. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And when I picture it, when you talk about that, it's like I could picture it being a platform where it's really the end users are the studios, whether they're major studios or not. When they put that movie to a distribution channel, the technology does exactly what you described. Cuts up the video, makes a trailer, but maybe it makes a version of a trailer for in multiple layers. Like I can picture it making a master trailer for each of the different platforms. So hear me out. So it'd be like a master trailer for Netflix users because there's a persona that watches Netflix, or just like there's certain content of people react to certain content on Netflix. And Netflix has its brand, right? So like all these platforms kind of have their brand. There's one for Disney Plus. There's a trailer for Max or wherever it's distributed, right? It's typically I think we see the movie in one or two platforms. But then within those platforms, it takes that master trailer or that master version of it and starts to personalize it for individuals that watch certain
Mm.
movies. Like it might not even be one to one yet. Maybe it gets to one personalization, but maybe it takes the idea of people that like comedies. This profile has a comedy first leaning profile, so let's show the comedic bits. This person has likes action movies, show them the action bits. So I think there's ways to personalize it even at the even if it's not at the one-on-one level, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point, but even at just like the persona levels, you've got your comedy watchers, your people who watch at night, people who watch in a day. All those people react differently to different content. So being able to leverage AI to create those trailers, leveraging the content from the movie and distribute it. Again, like you mentioned, it's a powerful way to drive people to watch the movie. It's one of the only ways. If you're not a known intellectual property or franchise, like if you don't know, like if you're not Marvel movie, if you're not a Disney movie, you're just like this kind of serious. Even Oppenheimer. I mean, Oppenheimer is obviously had a big studio behind it, but like a movie like that, had it not had a big studio behind it, the only way you would know about that movie is if you watched a trailer for it, and you'd be like, "Oh, what's this? This is interesting." I mean, think about this, Max. Think about all the times you've been in the movie theaters and you watch trailers at the beginning of a movie. How excited you get when you see like, "Oh, wow, that's coming out. What is this? This looks cool." And then all of a sudden you're excited for it. Had that trailer not been there, and you would not be excited. Now let's take that to the next level with AI, and it'll just be even more impactful to people.
Yeah, very very interesting. I like that point about personalization, and I actually think that it never needs to get into a one to one. Like it doesn't need to be
Mm-hmm.
personalized for Spencer or for Max specifically. It needs to be
Yeah,
personalized for people like Spencer, right? Because it's far
yeah,
easier to tell. It's far harder. Yeah, it's far more difficult to tell what how one person is going to behave, and it's far easier to predict how a group of like minded people are going to behave. And so I
yeah,
think it just those are excellent examples.
yeah.
I yeah, also another great point about how do we actually discover new movies that are coming out, right? It's when you were going to movie theaters, you saw it in the trailer, or if you're watching TV, you always had commercials. Commercials are a big way of finding out. And now that I don't know about you, but we pay for a whole lot of streaming apps, and those streaming apps do not have ads, which means
Mm-hmm.
and we don't really watch live TV, and people who are cutting the cord just continues to kind of increase. Cutting the cord meaning they switch to streaming platforms. It's continuing to increase every year, and so doesn't that signal that even fewer people are going to see those commercials, right? Actually find, like, discovery is going to be decreased of new trailers, of new movies that are going to be coming out. And another very interesting point that I just thought of while you were talking is, a couple of weeks ago I was over at your place and I discovered, and not discovered, but I tried virtual reality for the
Mhm.
very first time with Oculus. And it just, coming back to this conversation, it just really makes me wonder if people are going to stop going to movie theaters altogether. Because why would you,
Mhm.
right? If I go into Oculus and I open Netflix and I start watching a movie, and you just have, you have the front row seat, you have the best seat in the house. When you start watching it, you have your own popcorn, you don't have somebody just babbling in the corner talking the whole time. It's just a much better movie watching experience. So why would you ever go back to the movie theater and pay $30 for a movie ticket plus another $30 for popcorn and snacks, and then you bring your whole family, it's like $100? I think that the future is going to be people just watching these things at home. So how do you get them to select the movies that you want? Right? I think it has to be like really powerful cover art, has to be really powerful trailers.
Also, AI generate can be AI generated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The cover art.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it is. If you look at Netflix actually tests their cover art in a very
Mhm.
big way across many different types of cohorts and audiences, because they know that cover art is such a big part of the decision making
Mhm.
process. And then, speaking of Netflix, they don't ask you to play, like, hey, play trailer. If you hover over that thing, it just starts playing the trailer automatically. That kind of tells me how powerful the trailer is combined
Mhm.
with the cover art, right? I assume they also test a little summary blip on top and how it's written, because like those three things is the formula for whether you're going to watch it or not. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's actually absolutely the case. I do think that with some of the AI generated content in Hollywood, just kind of going back to the Hollywood mindset, I do think that some of the questioning will come from like artistic integrity. Like that's what the trailer is fine. Like I think trailers. Well, there are people that make trailers all the time. Like this is their full time job. You see the movie The Holiday?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you
Every
remember it?
year, every year I'm
Okay,
forced to
okay,
watch
okay,
it.
okay. Yeah, I mean that's yeah, same exactly. That's how I know it so well. I mean, Cameron Diaz, she's literally she makes trailers. That's her job, and she's got a team of people to make it. Like that goes away in an instance where it could be just one person. You still need human. I mean, I absolutely think you still need some level of human intervention, but it can be done with like one person or two people, right? And you still need to give it content, but that content can all come from the movie anyway, and it'll just learn and it'll get better. Now, I think the where I'm going with this is that I feel like that same old school mentality, it's still very much ingrained in Hollywood. And it goes back to the question that I asked Hollywood, will you lean in or not? And if if Hollywood, which I don't think it'll, I know you think you said it'll lean in. I think it'll take some time for it to lean in. And the reason being is that it's you've got six major studios that run most of Hollywood, and they're just it's an older industry now, not super old, but an older industry that's just harder to change. They're so big. Movies are to create movies are you're so risk adverse, right? Like they're all risk adverse. They don't want to do movies that tell different stories. We're seeing a lot of the same stories being told because at the end of the day, it's a job. I need a salary, and I need to make. Even if I'm an executive, I need to show that I'm bringing in revenue, right? And or year over year, which the reason I'm saying this is it allows AI or the amateur or the independent person to start to leverage AI to create their own films. And
Hmm.
maybe that's the natural way of things where we could start to see them start to disrupt these larger, older school Hollywood juggernauts, right? Where it's like the somebody can come in, hey, I'm gonna tell stories that haven't been told. I have a camera, lower budget. I don't need to spend $500,000. I think that the thought, I don't think that's sustainable in the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years to create movies that are like $500, $50 million. I think movies need to go back down to like a budget of like 100K, and then that and you really focus on creativity because that's what people are going to care much more about anyway, telling those stories that resonate, and they're just like not as common. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, do you think can we see a revolution in storytelling apart from the trailers but also movie making where we start to leverage this AI capabilities to make movies?
Yeah, dude. Yes,
Yeah.
I love this topic, and Oh, okay, and fascinating. Let's build on that. So I agree with you. I think I predict, and it sounds like you do too, that the future of movie making is actually not going to be by the major Hollywood studios and Hollywood in general. I think it'll be independent movie makers. I think
Mm-hmm.
technology has caught up where, like the iPhone 15, you can create a short film on that today, and it'll look almost indistinguishable from a professional making it. Like very
Mm-hmm.
very cool stuff. Sure, you need to spend some money on like proper lighting, on proper sound, things like that. But overall, who is actually behind that camera, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not a person selected by Hollywood. It's someone independent. It's someone who wants to tell a story that hasn't been told before. Maybe because it's not a story that's applicable to the mass audience, which is what a $50 million film has to target
Has to be, yeah.
in order to sell it in order to buy it. Hollywood, to your point, also follows a formula for a lot of movies, right? And
Mm-hmm.
any formula means that it's a pattern. Any pattern can be fed into AI and build something
Mm-hmm.
new off of that. And so yes, I think that the future will be sort of like this independent platform where the distribution channels also completely shift away from you spend $50 million on a. Okay, let me back up a little bit because this is interesting. So the distribution formula for movies used to be you spend 50 mil, you develop
Mm-hmm.
a movie, you hire all of the actors and all of that, and then you distribute it to movie theaters. For movie theaters, after a limited time, it goes to Blu-ray, to DVD, to TV, things like that. People are not really going to movie theaters anymore, so that's already in jeopardy. And especially during the pandemic, a lot of these movies they had to go straight to TV. So that's interesting. And
Yep.
so I think that people just want their content. They don't necessarily need to go to movie theaters, especially with like VR, what we spoke about, it really enhancing that experience. I do think that in the future is going to be one of these independent platforms where people can just develop a movie, sub $100,000. Maybe they get some external investing to help them with that, but yeah, I think it's going to be independent people making this. I think they're going to distribute it on this platform. I think they're going to use AI to create the trailers that are getting the most click through. They're resulting in the most movies being watched. And I think that power is dramatically going to shift away from these movies, from these like traditional old school Hollywood types. If anything, I think those movie studios are going to start buying up a lot of these independent platforms, because they want those eyeballs. They want to sell that
Yeah.
merch, which is still where a lot of that money comes from. And so I
Yeah.
think they're going to be intertwined in a much bigger way. But I think that rift is going to first need to develop. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The buyouts is interesting. Well, because I was going to say, when I think about how to even get those distributions, it would be interesting to see a platform come along where it's an independent movie platform. It's a streaming platform like Netflix, Disney, the ones that you know of, but just for independent creators on AI. I'm sure there's a platform out there for independent creators today, but I guess like Vimeo was kind of that. But really, it should be like the quality of a Netflix. Like it should look very similar, like the standard. Like, wow, okay, I go in here. These are all AI created movies. You get distribution through it through the system that we talked about with the trailers that are personalized. It's almost like an AI forward platform, and then perhaps I can see it. I could see a larger studio, to your point, going on there to start to buy some of these smaller independent movie makers out. Like it almost becomes. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but for anybody who's familiar with SoundCloud, SoundCloud was basically like where Spotify is kind of the Netflix, SoundCloud is kind of what I was talking about with the AI. It's like more independent. It's where major labels would go to find people and or to be honest, steal ideas, right? What's out there, what's popular on SoundCloud, steal ideas and then use that on an artist. Like I think there could be this similar relationship. Like there could be a SoundCloud for AI movie makers where the major studios like Paramount and Netflix have their platforms with less content, more curated, more professional, high level, where you have this AI independent movie platform where there's a ton of content that's independently made, unique stories, and honestly, it just becomes like it'll probably realistically, if this comes out or that come out, it would disrupt the larger studios, but it would probably be a place where the larger studios would just go and peek in and see, hey, what are some ideas here? What's going on? What can we steal? and make it into a bigger production? Or who do we buy out? To your point, like maybe they just straight up buy them out.
Yeah, I feel like just recently, like maybe last week or in the last 2 weeks, some if I'm remembering correctly, some movie studio went to the independent film festival, saw some film, and just bought it right away because they wanted to release it on a broader scale. This also
Mm-hmm.
made me think that a few years ago, I just looked it up, but like back in 2000, a few years ago, I guess it was more than that, in 2001. Remember Project Greenlight?
No.
No, it was okay. So the executive producers were, or like the people who started this like little experiment were Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, and they had this idea where if you include, it's sort of what we're talking about. It's sort of like the bridge in between. Where what if we don't only use the movie makers and directors that Hollywood keeps promoting? What if we go to
Mm-hmm.
more independent screenwriters, independent filmmakers, independent directors and whoever else is part of that team and create these movies like like Matt Damon, Ben Affleck are still going to be the producers because they have they're able to sell it through and like get it distributed into movie theaters. But that was sort of like that bridge where I think they saw that
Interesting.
like the talent in Hollywood was a little like old school. It's tried, it's
Mm-hmm.
true, but it's the same formula over and over again. Can we get some fresh voices and we get some fresh tastes and like flavors injected into here to tell stories that haven't been told in a really unique way, in a really like visually different way? And to be honest, man, until AI really hit the hit the big screen, I always thought that trailers would be user generated content. I think that people
Interesting.
would be able to just like, because there's just a lot more talent out there than what is inside Hollywood. Like there's a
So
lot of
source it
people
out.
who can edit videos. Yeah, like or just source it out. Maybe open source it. I don't know. Maybe like people can work
Mhm.
together to develop these things.
Yep.
It's also and then AI came about and it's like, well, what do we need user generated content for when we could just have this machine create all these optimized clips together? I think it's also important to remember, like, while we're really focused in this conversation on movie trailers, the same formula should be applied to shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shows have episode recaps, right? So, like, within a season, there's like 10 episodes. What happened in the last episode? Or if season one ended and there was, 6 months in between before season two starts, the previous season recap, right? That's what AI should really be used for.
Yeah,
So,
which we have today. We have recaps, but like AI should be leveraged to do those type of recaps for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, same
Totally.
formula.
Yeah, 100%. Well, hey, I know we're past time. You want to just
Let's wrap it
any
here. I
last
think this was
notes?
good. Yeah, no,
All right,
no, this was good.
all right, all right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode of In the Future, talking about how AI will impact the entertainment industry, especially movie trailers and all the low hanging fruit that really drives viewers to watch the content and stories being told. Catch you next time.
Okay, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.